Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and change makers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I'm your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. Today, we're talking to Kadjahtou Balde. She is a social entrepreneur, a community builder, and the founder of Modify, which is a Harlem-based thrift shop, reimagining modest fashion through sustainability and accessibility. She is also the founder and executive director of Faithfully Sustainable, which offers faith-rooted capacity-building programs that inspire Muslims to adopt environmentally conscious practices and build community-centered economic systems. Now, before launching her own ventures, Kadjahtou served as a program manager for entrepreneur development within the New York State Small Business Division, where she helped deliver millions of dollars in funding and support to small businesses across the state. We both worked in government, love that. Rooted in her experience as the daughter of immigrants and now a mother herself, Kadjahtou's work is guided by a vision of legacy, healing, and community self-sufficiency. She builds with what's available, leads with intention, and creates spaces that reflect care, dignity, and collective resilience. Welcome, Kadjahtou.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I did my big one with that one.
You sure did. I love reading people's bios to them and then being like, yes, that is me. So I like to start with this question of possibility and looking back to a kind of a previous version of you. So my question is, what do you do now, or what's in your current reality now that a younger version of you didn't know was possible?
So to set the context, I'm actually sitting at my thrift store in Harlem. And quite honestly, this is the big one that I really did not know could happen in the way that it's happening. And just so the listeners can understand a little bit more. So I took over my dad's longtime shop and I turned it into a thrift store. And my dad has been in Harlem for decades. And this particular store has been here for about 10 plus years. And whenever I look at the work that has done and has gone into the redevelopment process, I honestly just always get emotional because I used to come in here, on the weekends or whenever I came back from university, and I would just always think up ideas of what I could do to transition the shop, what I could do to help out to make it look better, and thinking up all the ways that I could support my dad in recreating the business, scaling the business. And the fact that it actually happened, it's still really shocking to me. I think for most of my life, I've just seen my parents work really hard to make a life for themselves in this country and to literally just take care of everybody. And I could tell they also needed support. So when I was thinking about what I really wanted to do in my life, I knew it had to involve them, but I didn't really know that it was possible for me to actually make it happen. So being in this space now that I have been able to just redevelop the store and turn it into something that I absolutely love. And the fact that I get to work with my dad at the same time is just a really special thing that I really could not have imagined that it would happen in the way that it has.
I love that. I'm so curious what your day-to-day is like working with your dad, knowing that you kind of grew up going to the store, reimagining it, and now you've kind of taken over, right? And is a new vision. When we first started working together, you were talking about changing the awning and changing the walls and making sure that what you were offering was also relevant to folks in Harlem. There's still stuff in there that your dad used to sell, right? Yeah, she's pointing at like t-shirts behind her. That is like one of the main things that like folks in Harlem will come buy. But yeah, what's your day to day like with him?
So, first of all, like, it's incredible talking to you actually, because you actually really get it. Like, you've been there when this project was just like, when we were just thinking about pop ups. So, you were there when we are just thinking about pop ups. And so, it's crazy that it's come to this thing that it is now. And I love that I've been on this journey with you. Working with my dad is really interesting. Okay. Most of the time, we are honestly in disagreements. He has his ways, and all of it makes sense to him, and most of them do not make sense to me. Or even if they make sense, I just have different ideas in terms of like how we should do things. So it's been a really interesting journey. I think I am taking in just the fact that I'm able to be with him literally most of my week and most of my time during the day, because that's not something I had growing up. Like, he is the kind of person who, like most immigrant dads, like was working 7 days a week, 12 plus hour shifts. So he was never home. So, like, this shop is literally his living room space where everybody comes and meets him. And so it's this crazy experience of just like looking at him. Like, sometimes I'm just literally looking and listening to like how he is and the people in the community that he interacts with. And so I would say it's a mix of learning more about my dad in many ways and appreciating the time that we have together, while at the same time it's also just really annoying and having to deal with all of his stubborn ways that I can't.
I mean, that's a reality, right, of working with family, working with your parents, and especially because you have transitioned, right, in your role in the store. Something too that strikes me that in our past conversations that's coming to mind is that this is not just a store, right? This is not just like you walk in, you pick out the t-shirt or whatever, and then you pay. But this is a space where people will, I think you've said like you've done remittances to other countries where they come from. Folks who are doing deliveries, they would come and charge their phones, and this was just like a sitting space for them. Can you speak to the store as like a community space and how that's evolved in the transition?
Yeah, the store is definitely a community space. Like, my dad was one of the individuals in Harlem here who helped a lot of the asylum seekers that came in. And so we would hold their bags for them. We would do many things. Like, my mom actually makes food every single day for my dad. And all the food that he brings is always enough to share with every single person who usually comes. And it's not just one or two people, it's literally 5 to 10 people that would consistently come here, sometimes different faces. And so before the store transition, you would just see at lunchtime, dinner time mostly, where they would literally have like a big feast in the middle of the store. So it was just like, it was a lot happening. It was more of a community space than I would say a business. And there was good parts to that, right? And my dad's been here forever, so like his customers are just like his returning customers. I wouldn't say there were a lot of new customers. It was just people that he's built with over the years, and like they will not get t-shirts anywhere else but this store. And one thing about Harlem is like people are really loyal. When they have a black owned business or like a business has been there forever, like they're going to do their best to make sure that business stays and stays in business. And so a lot of his customers is people that he's known since they were like 10. Like he's known their whole family. And so it's a major community hub. And that's actually what inspired the way that I wanted to do with the thrift store, in that I didn't want it to just be a thrift store, right? I didn't want it to just be a business. I wanted to really keep that community piece in there, which is why one of my goals with this business is eventually I would like to hire asylum seekers and refugees to actually run this thrift store, and hopefully a few others that come from it. Because I think one thing that I've learned from him is just how important it is to have economic independence and self sufficiency He always taught me that it's better for you to build for yourself. That way, you're able to just have more control of yourself and you're able to help others. And his whole philosophy is it's better you help others than to be helped. And I think business really allows for you to do that. Even just thinking about the community of houseless individuals that we have here. Like we literally have our five same old individuals that come in here almost every day on routine asking for money. You know what I mean? And like we have our set, like my dad has his like set cash of this is what we're handing out today. And then he also always has water here. And I hate that it's bottled water and that we're not being sustainable. But he always has bottled water here that he just gives out for free. And he's always done that. And so sometimes you come and we give you $1, other times we're like, just take a bottle of water. And so he has instilled just a lot of like community centered things in here that he does for people. So that makes it more than a thrift store. And I think that is part of his legacy that I really want to continue is that to not just have business be transactional, but to focus on the ways that you're able to give to community through business.
It's so much more. It's so much more. This is about legacy. This is about family. This is about community, but it's also about sustainability, right? Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that piece? Because
Yeah,
you're also the
that's
ED of Faithfully Sustainable.
Yeah, I am the ED Faithfully Sustainable. And with FS, we do a lot of work around capacity building within Muslim communities so that we're able to bring to them environmental justice education that is centered in our faith. And for me, my faith has been something that has really impacted my whole entire life trajectory and the way that I do business, the way that I deal with people, the way that I am towards the environment. My religion is something that I actually came into in middle school. I was raised in like a religious household, but I would say my parents were more so the people who acted out the religious values rather than forced them upon us. And I think that really allowed me a different approach to the way that I engage with my religion, which is Islam. And so, like I would see what I was telling you in terms of how my dad acts towards people when it comes to charity. I would see the way my mom would act. I would see the way that they prayed and the way that, like, my sister would always literally water the tree right outside of our Bronx apartment building, things like that, that I grew up around. And then eventually I went to a masjid. I actually asked my parents to take me there because I saw one of my friends who was like in it and I was curious. Like I've always just been a really curious individual. And so long story short, Islam is a faith that really teaches about protecting the planet, being fair to people, and it's something that I've always loved. And so that actually inspired my want to create Faithfully Sustainable, which is because I noticed that the religion talks heavily about environmental values. And so I wanted to speak directly to our Muslim community to allow them to connect environmental justice to Islam, to something that they already value. And the end goal with that is we actually would like to create different capacity building programs within different Muslim communities to allow them to understand the different environmental issues that are happening within their area, while at the same time helping them create economic systems that are going to create self sufficiency for their particular community. Because that's what I'm all about, and that's what the organization is all about: is how can we power communities so that they're not dependent on outside sources to be able to sustain themselves.
Yeah, I think it was just about like sustainability in general and how
Yes.
all of these things are connected. But you're so good at that. You're so good at connecting like the value and like the thing that's important to us to our everyday lives. And I that's what I hear you saying with faithfully sustainable. You wanted to
Yeah.
say something else?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think connecting the self sufficiency part to modify here, it's kind of like, and modify is an extension of the work that I do with Faithfully Sustainable, in that I am trying to create self sufficiency for myself and for my family, while at the same time doing something that is good for the environment. Modify is the very first modest centered thrift shop in New York City. And the whole goal is we want to circulate modest fashion because there's this constant push within the global modest fashion industry of just creating new modest fashion to tailor to the modest dressing individuals, while at the same time there is not enough work around the ethics behind creating these new clothing, and there is also no circularity with modest fashion specifically. And modest fashion is very expensive. You have traditional fashion, you have bazins, you have saris, you have so many different cultural aspects that goes into modest fashion, and there isn't any thrift shop that is focusing heavily on collecting pieces like this. And so what I do here at the thrift store is I collect pieces like that. I collect modest fashion that could be layerable, but the overall goal is I really want to extend the life cycle of modest fashion while at the same time making it accessible, because modest fashion is also really expensive. You know, you have something called an abaya, which is like the Muslim modest dress. And these dresses are going from like $100 to $150, and they're literally polyester. Like there is no need for polyester to cost $100. And so with this store, we have abayas and other modest garments that are from $15 to $20. You know, so it's about making it accessible while at the same time extending the life cycle of modest fashion so that it doesn't end up in waste fields.
And what a beautiful thing that someone can just walk into a store and know that the entire store is made for them and that they don't have to go and spend $500 on it, you know?
Yeah, that's literally why I wanted to do it because I've been thrifting forever, literally like forever. And I always wanted to go into a thrift store that would have all of my needs as a New Yorker who loves to thrift. But at the same time, I want to dress modestly. And so it was just hard to like walk in and have to like dig through so many items before I found a long sleeve t shirt or a long sleeve maxi dress. But now people can just come into the store and they can find long sleeve maxi dresses without searching through thousands of piles before they get to that.
So good. It's so good. I was able to go to your opening day. And I remember just like the stream of people and the joy that I like the smiles that I was seeing, you know, as people were like going through the racks. What was that day like for you?
It was probably and will probably be one of the best days of my life because like I said in the beginning, like this project, a lot of heart went into it and a lot of effort went into it because I actually started it when I was 2 months postpartum, and I had a C-section at that. So I was literally just like in the thick of a lot of things, but I had this urge. I remember you and I kept talking and you were like, push this, like, girl, give yourself time. And I'm glad we spoke, right? Because I did give myself more than 6 weeks to do it, right? But even that was too early. But me being me, like when I want to do something, I kind of just go at it, and it will continue to bug me unless I actually complete what I am set out to do. And so that day was surreal because of just all the effort that had gone into it, both me and my dad. Like we literally painted these walls ourselves, you know, like it was just a lot of physical labor, emotional labor. But then the other part of it was seeing the community that showed up. Because, like, I have been building a community through social media, but also through interpersonal connections with you and, like, with Daphne Sanchez, who I love as one of my mentors, and just like other people that have really believed in me from the very beginning and have supported me in ways that are just like unimaginable. So I think a combination of just all the hard work that went into it and just being with community and people that I absolutely love was just something that I will be forever grateful for.
Mm. And yet, I know that there was so much work that was put into it, and there was so much vision and commitment to the work. You know, you started working on this very shortly after giving birth, and even the pop ups were happening. You were like very pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, when you see the store, like if anyone has the ability and capacity to visit the store in Harlem, it's on Malcolm X between,
128, 129.
yeah. If you ever get to go, you will see that this store looks like it has been here. It looks like it belongs in this space. Like, how did this not exist before? And that was the sense that I got as I walked in. I was like, this is meant to be here. This is supposed to happen. And there was like I don't know, this sense that like, duh, of course this exists. And of course Kadjahtou is the one to create it. I'm thinking as you're speaking about something that you wrote in your bio, which is around building from where you are. And that's very obvious in the work that you do. But can you talk a little bit about what that means? What does that mean, like build where you are and with what you have?
Yeah, I know, right? Yay. I'm someone who comes from very modest means. And just a combination of who I am, like a daughter of immigrants and now a mother, being caught between those two, everything about me is really just like trying to build from where I am. And I think that there is a lot of value in that because oftentimes people wait till everything is like set and they have all the money that they need before they start a project. I'm of the belief that we don't necessarily need to do that. Yes, of course, it's going to be 1,000% harder than the next person to accomplish anything when you don't have much means to do it, but it is possible. And I think my story says that it's possible because when I started this thrift store project, like there was a lot of things to pay off. And, I haven't been working for a long time. So, like, I didn't even have a lot of savings. I didn't grow up with wealth, but I did grow up with community. And I think with community, there is a lot that you can accomplish. A lot of people wait until they have enough money or enough this and that before they actually start a project. I'm of the strong belief that even though it will be 1,000% harder to make it happen when you don't have money, that it is still possible to build something. There's a lot of examples of people who've done that. And I think for me, it's possible for me as well, because I do want to build wealth for myself and my family and my community. And I do want it to be generational. And so building from where I am is the only thing that I can do. So I think with this project specifically, it was made possible because of community. When I first started, I hadn't worked for a long time, so I didn't have like crazy amounts of savings. And all the savings that I did have, at that point when I started this, I was 6 months post leaving my job. And so I literally did not have much money at that point, right? And so I had to make a decision of like what to do and how to get it done. And for me, that was possible through fundraising. I did a fundraising on Launch Good, and I was able to bring thousands of dollars to help start this project. It honestly was not enough, but I made it enough. I made it enough because I worked with what I had and I got creative. So I used the initial funding just to help with supporting with rent. And then once that was like set, then I got creative and I looked into different passive ways that we could get money for the store through being an Amazon business partner where we ship packages locally, through UPS where we get packages at our store and we hand it to customers. So I got creative and I made it possible for us to have the money that we need to just get started. So when you have this mindset that you can do something, like that's where it starts. That's where it starts for you to actually be able to build within your means. And like I said, if you have community, like I think it is possible.
Yeah, absolutely enough. I mean, I think it's this idea of I can figure it out and I have the resources. Like, you might not have the wealth, but you're wealthy in other ways, right? Your own resourcefulness, your dad's resourcefulness, your community's resourcefulness, and your ability to tap into that, and your ability to be like, hey, community, I really want to create this for you, but I need your help in order to do it. It's beautiful. Like, not everyone is able to do that, you know?
Yeah, and I love that you said that because my dad piece is actually really central to this because he's already been here for a long time, right? So when it came to the redevelopment, that made it easier because he knew people in the community that we could get things for much more affordable prices than other individuals. You know what I mean? And he had the location here, which like the location is also one of the hardest things to get in this time and age. But because it's been here forever, like our rent is cheaper than a lot of other businesses in the area. So when I say legacy, like he really set the legacy for me. So even though there isn't wealth, I had so many other resources and networks thanks to him to actually make this happen.
Yeah. I've been obsessed lately with the idea of succession and succession planning, especially within like intergenerational organizations and intergenerational businesses, family businesses. When you have like an elder and a more like kind of emerging leader and what that means. I'm curious if you have thoughts because, we've talked about legacy. You talked about like, I want to build wealth for my family. What's the intention moving forward with both of you kind of like coexisting in this space and creating together? What are your thoughts around succession and what's your like kind of collective thoughts with your dad around succession?
Yeah, that has taken up a lot of space in my head too, honestly. So I love that you're thinking about it, especially within your field. I think for me, especially right now, like that is everything because my dad is 68 and so he is entering retirement. And that was one of the reasons why I especially wanted to support. And I think that in everything that we do, I feel like we are in a society where family values are not as strong anymore and community values are not as strong as they should be. And for me, I think it's everything, right? Because I think our elders have set the stage for so many things. It's just a matter of perspective and the way that we internalize and make use of them. Because somebody could have looked at this store and been like, it's a hot mess, like nothing could happen, right? But, if you shift your perspective and see, look at this location this person's in, look at the space in this building. So I think thinking about it from like a perspective of abundance is definitely going to be helpful, but also just actualizing the resources that already exist within that specific household or with that particular elder. Like my dad has been doing business for years, even before he came to this country. Like he was a successful businessman, he used to travel to everywhere. He's been to Syria before the war. Like he's been everywhere back home, and it's people like him that have left whatever they had to come here to build a better future for their family because they see that there's more opportunity here. And they might have been escaping from war, they might have been escaping from whatever they were escaping to come to this country. And so, really, like actually utilizing them, like it's something that is going to be of much value because even though he has a different way of thinking, I've realized that this man is literally like he's really smart. Like he really knows how to do business. The amount of things I'm learning in terms of like how to do fair business, right? To make sure that like you're accounting for things properly, like nobody's being cheated, just like little things. And like the way that he, even though the space is not as organized, but there's certain things that like he does that it's just like, wow, like I didn't even think about things in this way, or certain lessons that he has about dealing with people and lessons that he has about negotiation. There is so much that our elders have to offer that sometimes all it takes is us just actually listening to them with the intent of understanding in order for us to actually benefit from them. So I think a lot of people who come from really humble beginnings, there is probably much more value to get from that than from those who are already up there. And what I do in this area is I actually talk to a lot of other small businesses. So I talk to the vendors on the street and I get business advice from them. Like there is this lady, oh my God, on the corner of 135th Street. Please go talk to her because I'm telling you, that lady has some wisdom. And I'm able to talk to her in a different light from my dad because my dad, like I speak our language, but like sometimes we can't fully understand each other. But talking to her, she speaks very fluently and she tells me everything that my dad sometimes tells me that I don't understand, but the way she puts it just like clicks in my head. And she's been a vendor for over 20 years on the street of Harlem and she's making money. It might not be the type of money that like people are aiming towards, but she's making a living for herself. And so there's a lot of other people in the area as well that I just go to learn from because they're more within proximity. And so I think my big lesson with that and with succession is that intergenerational knowledge is often more valuable than intergenerational wealth because wealth
Ooh.
is something that you can build, right? But knowledge is something that is really hard to come by, and it comes with experience, and it comes through emotion, and it comes through wisdom. And so that is more valuable in like living a better life overall, right? Instead of just like considering finances and money. Finances and money is an add on. But if you're trying to live a fulfilled life, that wisdom is what's going to carry you forward when you do have that wealth.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, that wealth can come and go. You can build it up, you can lose it again and then bring it back. But that wisdom is so, the word that is coming to me is like holy, you know, like it's so
Literally.
sacred.
Yeah, even if you think of like, sorry to cut you off, but even if you think of
Yeah.
like climate, like the sustainability space, a lot of the intergenerational, like indigenous knowledge around protecting the planet is what is being utilized here. Like a lot of what we do at Faithfully Sustainable is we dig through research within past like Islamic scholars. And there's just so much knowledge around like Islamic economics, fair trade, into regenerative agriculture. There's so many different lessons. I'm just like, this is gold. This is what some people are repurposing and whitewashing or whatnot. But there's just so much knowledge that has come from before that is just literally gold if it's utilized in the way that it's meant to be.
Yeah. At the same time, there's a little bit of unlearning, right? There's a little bit of like doing things your own way because the physical space has transformed and the intention behind the space has transformed. You have put your own imprint into it. And we together did a lot of work around like compassionate planning and giving ourselves more time. What are some of the things that you've had to unlearn in this process? Maybe not even things that you had to unlearn from your dad or whatever other ancestors, but just like things in your everyday or ways that you thought it had to be that you've had to unlearn.
I think compassionate planning has been probably the most useful thing amongst all the useful things, right, that you have taught me. But that has been the most beneficial thing because I've always been like a workaholic. Like I've always just done a lot. And I think for people like me, having somebody really tell me that it's okay to do things a little bit later, right? It's okay to give yourself more time. It's just something that has changed the trajectory of my life and something that I will forever be grateful to you for. Because as somebody, like I said, who was 2 months postpartum, like there was just so many emotions that I didn't even know were normal, but were because of like my postpartum period that I'm just learning now. There's just so many things that were happening when I was starting this project, or even right now, right? Like with my dad and just having to learn how to deal with him and understand that transitioning the store means transitioning his life. There's just so many things that could have happened much quicker. But because I waited and because I am now planning to do things more patiently, I think we're going to end up being better in the long term. But I think this is really like the work. Like this is the hard part in like I think being compassionate with myself in the way that I schedule my time and the way that I do things is number one. Better time management is definitely something that I have learned and has been extremely helpful with the compassionate planning. I will also say sitting with and like dealing with the relationship dynamic that I have with my dad and with other people in my life has been really helpful in this journey, right? Because this is still a family business. And so what that means is that I see my dad more often, I see my family more often, and I have to actually deal with them. And when you're like living on your own and just going to your job, like you get to choose if you call your family or not, if you visit them or not. But being that we're always face to face with each other, there's just a lot of work that has to happen with that. And for me, like I am somebody who is coming more and more like into my family side and understanding that I want to build wealth, but I want to build it with family and I want to build it with my community. It is just something that I know is going to take a lot more effort, right? Because there's emotions involved, there's traumas involved, there is just like moments where I have to just go through having to forgive certain people for things that they have done so that we can move forward from that and actually build together. And so I have learned that I have to be more patient with myself and know that I may not be able to move as quicker as the next person, but it's okay, right? And being a mom, like I have a 15-month-old that is just, it takes a lot of time and energy. And I hate that I am away from her most of the time. And that when I'm with her, like my mind is thinking about different things that I could be doing, or sometimes I literally like I'm in bed and I'm just like stressed out, crawled up, and I'm like, damn, like I want to be here, but I also like should be doing this. I could be doing this. I could be sending these emails. I could be doing all of this marketing. And so I have learned that, and I still have a lot more learning to do, but I am trying really hard to be patient with myself, and I will tell others to also give themselves grace, because when you're building with community, sometimes things are going to take longer, and that's okay. But it also does not mean that you will not make it. And it does not mean that you will not make it greatly. Like we will do it. It's just it might take us a little bit longer. And I think I am starting to be okay with that. Like I know I want this location. I know I want another location. I know that I eventually want to give support to community for asylum seekers and refugees to work here. But I know that will take some time, and that's okay. And that is my business journey. I just have to figure out a timeline that works for me and that I can manage. And I also have to do a lot of what you tell me all the time. I have to delegate. I have to start delegating, bro.
Yeah. What does your faith say about patience and compassion, particularly for yourself? I'm curious.
Like that's the most beautiful part about me. I think it's really my faith. Because through all of this, it's what really centers me, because there's literally a lesson in everything. And for your question in particular, patience is called sabr in Islam. And it is actually one of the most important qualities that a believer can possess. And it's this idea that in order to attain spiritual growth and divine rewards, you actually have to be patient. There's this quote in Arabic that says, I think this is in the Quran as well, "Fasbir sabran jamila." So be patient with gracious patience. And it's so beautiful because it emphasizes that, in order for you to reach a higher connection with God, you actually have to give yourself gracious patience. And that like says a whole lot in itself, right? But I think for me, I've learned that God is really patient with me, right, in the mistakes that I make, and that He is forgiving when I come to Him in repentance. And there's nothing that He cannot forgive if I am truly repentant. So I too must give myself patience. If I cannot give myself patience and forgiveness for things that I'm truly not able to do and accomplish, then how can I expect him to forgive me for the little things or even the big things? And there's just like an emphasis also of just like giving patience to people in your community, in your family. And I think for me, like that has been one of the most important things, because I realized that with time, like some things are just able to resolve themselves. And so with business in particular, like I am trying to do that to myself more, to understand that I trust myself, I trust God wholeheartedly. And so I know that it will take a long time. And I've come to that understanding, just because business is, you have to be in it for the long game. You can't be in it for 2 months, a year, or even 5 years and think that is going to come, right? But as a Muslim, I understand that if you work at something and if you tie your camel, then God will help you in that process. You just have to keep at it, right? And one thing that I also love from Islam is it really teaches you about building habits rather than just doing everything. Like the most rewarded things are the things that you do consistently. So that in itself teaches you about the importance of just being consistent with it, right? Like it's better that you give $1 every day, for example, as charity, rather than give $100 at one time or like every 2 years or something. Like the things that you are very consistent with is the ones that are going to be most rewarded. right? So that in itself teaches you that consistency is really like what it is. So I know that if I keep showing up for myself, if I keep showing up for my business, if I keep showing up for my community consistently and within my means, then I know that will be rewarded.
I love how grounded even your voice shifts when you speak about Islam. And the thing that I was thinking about as you're talking about, like, I have to give myself grace because how can I accept that from God if I'm not giving that to myself? And it's almost like you're treating yourself the way that you know God is treating you. I love that. And you're such a testament to that patience, to that grace, to that commitment for the long haul, to yourself and to community. As we close out, I'm curious, what's next for you? What's next for Modify? What's next for Faithfully Sustainable? What's next for your family?
I'm really in the stage where everything I do is about building something more stable, more abundant, and more self sufficient. So for me, that really looks like being consistent at creating a really successful thrift shop. This is going to be the it thrift shop, okay? Like, this is going to be an incredible and profitable thrift store and community space. So that's really big on my plate right now. But I think above all of that, I'm really in the space of how do I ground myself more, right? So that as I'm continuing to build, I'm not forgetting the parts that are most important, which are my spiritual growth, my family relationships, because I think everything else is an add on. But I'm realizing that happiness and contentment really is only going to come through your connection with yourself, the way you love yourself, the way you're patient with yourself, what you do for yourself, and also how you interact with your family and how you interact with your community. Giving and the way you show up in those spaces, I think it's something that is going to be the most important thing long term. And I've learned that through just the people that come here. Like I talk to so many people, even though it's only been like the opening has been what, like 2.5 months. I've spoken to so many people that have come in here and I've just learned so much from them. I've learned so much from my dad. I know that in the space that he's been where he used to make a lot of money back home. Then he came here, he made a lot of money, he brought all of us, right? And then things went down. Like I know that I am an optimist and I believe that things will continue to go up for me. I truly do. But at the same time, I understand that even if things fluctuate, that what is going to be most important is family. And so what family and community. So what I will continue to do is I will definitely continue to work hard at business because that's just my passion and that's what I love to do. And I love everything about what I'm doing with the thrift store and with Faithfully Sustainable and the communities I work with. But also, I'm going to try really hard to be present with my daughter, with my husband, with my family, and I'm going to try and show up and make sure that I make time for them always.
So beautiful. Thank you for your wisdom and for sharing your story. How can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
Y'all can connect with me through coming to the thrift store. Again, it's 371 Malcolm X Boulevard. We're right next to the Jacobs here. And it's a cute space. Come to Harlem. I promise it's going to be really fun. And also Instagram. My Instagram is, I think, will you have it down there?
Yes, we'll have it in the show
Okay,
notes.
yeah. So connect with me on Instagram. I usually respond really quick there. But otherwise, I would just love to meet all of your beautiful faces in person.
Amazing. I cannot wait for you all to see this store. Please bring donations. Feel free to shop the store. And I cannot wait for the world to hear this conversation because it was such a good one. Thank you so much, Kadjahtou. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.